Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. On today's episode we have a bodyboarder incident, we have a couple incidents involving spearfishermen, we have an incident involving a swimmer that reminds me a lot of the late 2022 attack in Hawaii, and we're going to finish out the show with You Don't Hear That Every Day. I hope you stick around, it's going to be a great show. Okay, now we're going to start out the show over at Puamana, and that is in Maui, Hawaii, and the date is August 4th of 1980. Mark Schedule, 18 years old. He is out doing some bodyboarding, and he's got himself about 30 to 40 yards from shore. No telling of the depth of water, although, you know, over there it's probably pretty deep in Hawaii, and he's laying on his board, he's resting. They don't say the time of day. And suddenly he sees a shark. He spots himself a shark close by, and he catches a wave and thinks he's escaped the shark. He gets in and realizes that he's bleeding, and he is bitten from his armpit almost to his waist. He's got a big crescent-shaped bite to him, and the shark got more of the board than it ended up getting of him. His wounds sounded like the cut went in on an angle, so he must have moved or something to get out of the way. Maybe it was in his paddling motion, but it sounds like he escaped a really bad injury. As a shark expert at the time, so that he kind of turned at the right time so that the shark ate mostly the board and not him. And the fact that it's, you know, that he didn't know that he was bitten until he got in is kind of crazy on that one, but a lot of people don't feel the shark's teeth, and especially when they're not putting a lot of pressure, those light bites where people think that their buddy's got their leg, they usually don't feel those teeth, which is one of the oddest things about these attacks. So we'll put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. They said that this was a 14-foot tiger shark that ended up getting a hold of the side of him, and that's a pretty big bite to go from even 18-year-old. You're pretty much man size at that point, and that's a pretty big bite. So we'll put that down as a 14-foot tiger shark on that attack. Okay, now we're going to head over to Lindamar Beach, and that is over in California. The date is March 12th of 1993. Don Barry, he is 55 years old, and he is out doing some spearfishing. He's got himself about 150 yards off of shore, maybe a little bit less. He's in 30 to 35 deep water. He has just speared himself a fish prior to 2:30. And he took the fish and put it up on his dive board. They take a board out there and they use that to put everything they need on there. So he takes the fish, puts it up on his dive board, and he dives back down, goes all the way down to the bottom, and now it's 2:30. He's ascending back up to the surface when suddenly he feels something pushing him through the water by his foot. And he looks down and sees a shark that's got his swim fin in its mouth. Not his foot, just the end of the swim fin is in its mouth, and he's being pushed through the water. So he takes his spear gun and he pokes the shark in the nose a couple times. With that, the shark releases and it swims off. He gets up to the surface, he swims over and yells to the other spear fishermen in the area what had happened so they can get out of the water. He ends up showing the swim fin to investigators. One of the investigators that looked into it, a shark expert, was Johnny McCosker. He is one of the authors of Great White Shark, Ellis and McCosker. So he's pretty much an expert in great white sharks. That's the book that I used long ago that I used to get familiar with the great white sharks. Really good book. So McCosker claims, yeah, this was a great white shark. They just don't know what size it was, so it's an attack, not an attempt to predate, no injury, great white, we don't know what size. Okay, now we're going to head over to Rudder Reef, and that is in Australia, and the date is December 15th of 2014. Daniel Smith, he is 18 years old. He and a couple friends are out doing some spearfishing at Rudder Reef. Daniel is in the water when he is suddenly attacked by a shark. His friends pull him up onto their boat and call in an emergency to get him in. He has been bitten pretty badly. He has severe bite to his upper right arm, upper right thigh, and his groin. So he had bled very badly when they pulled him up into the boat. He quickly his distress call was heard by a nearby dive boat. They came over and they pulled him on board, and they gave him resuscitation for the 2 hours that it took to get him in, as the helicopter that they called, that the emergency services usually use, was already in use taking somebody else somewhere to the hospital. But I don't think it was a shark attack that the helicopter was used for. So he ends up bleeding out. They said he was probably gone within the first 10 minutes after he got up out of the water. So probably right when he got onto that dive boat is when he passed away. He had gone into cardiac arrest and they weren't able to resuscitate him. They said this was a tiger shark. I don't see that they give the size estimate on the tiger shark, but that's what we're going to have to go by. They said there's 137 or so species of shark over there, but they came to the determination that it was a tiger shark. But I didn't hear about any teeth fragments recovered or anything that would put a definite on it. So we're going to put this down as an attack, an attempt to predate by a tiger shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Tathra. That is in Australia. The date, April 3rd of 2014. Christina Armstrong. She is 63 years old. She's with her husband Rob and 4 others, and they're doing a swim from Tathra Wharf to Tathra Beach and back. It's 250 meters one way, so they're going about 1,800 feet total, 3/8 of a mile for us here in the United States total between there and back. They leave and they're heading out. The group made it to the wharf and they started heading back to the beach. Now they're approaching the beach to get pretty close, within 100 yards, and they notice that there is a large shark, 3 to 4 meters, lying on the surface of the water. One of the swimmers thought that it was a bronze whaler laying on the surface of the water. Some reports are birds were also hovering over that shark, which means the shark is probably feeding. Well, they all get themselves into shore. Now, Christine was separated from the other swimmers by a little bit. She had fallen behind, I believe it is, just a little bit, and was, isolated from the group. The group gets ashore and they realize that Christine is not with them. They did not witness the attack. They saw the shark sitting there, like I said, about 100 yards from shore, 110 yards from shore. And there was a witness on the beach that did see the attack. So this witness on the beach saw the shark go and grab onto Christine, and this was a complete fatality. They searched for her body. There was never anything located of her that I have heard. I didn't hear of any wetsuit or anything that was recovered on this case. There is some doubt that this was a bronze whaler, and they believed that it was a white shark, as they were saying 3 to 4 meters, where bronze whalers 3 meters, 11 feet, pretty much top line. 10, 11 feet is the biggest you're going to get on a bronze whaler. So if it's any bigger than that, it's probably a great white shark to grab a hold of her, and I would say that's probably what happened. We'll put this down as an attack, a predation. We're just not sure of the shark, but we're going to put a 3 to 4 meter shark, or 10 to 14 feet. We're going to quickly cover an attack that happened over at Bataan, which is in the Philippines. This is in May of 2003, an unidentified male. He was a resident of some village or maybe an island there, but he was in the water swimming. They had noticed that they started getting white sharks in the area. There aren't many details at all on this, other than the gentleman had his arm ripped off and it was a great white shark that attacked him. So we're going to put this down as a great white shark, an attack, not an attempt to predate. We don't know what size shark. We don't even know the victim's name, but I am going to put this down so we'll be able to get to it by the date of May 5th. And in any attacks that start out with the first date of the month, some of those mean that there's not a date in the files. It just says May, or it just says June. So when I enter it, it puts it as the first day of the month. So some of those, if you see one that says June 1st and they just say May or June in there, it's not the first that I'm saying it's on there. It means that in those cases, it doesn't know. We don't know what month it happened. So that's our attack on an unidentified male. Okay, we're going to finish off our unprovoked attacks over at Midnight Lump, and that is in Mexico, and the date on this is sometime in March of 2000. Kurt Bickle, 39 years old, he and some friends went out to Midnight Lump to do some spearfishing. That's about 45 miles off of shore of Mexico. This not really an island, it sounds like a mountain range that just comes up out of the water, and they're there to do some spearfishing. They're in 200 feet of water. It's just before 4 o'clock. They're anchored. They have a float, so a buoy that they put out that has a short, small rope that goes to the boat, and they hang on to this probably to rest when they're in the water. So Kurt is in the water and he's holding on to the float. He's waiting for one of his buddies had gone back to the boat as he had ingested seawater, and now he's on the boat getting that up out of his system. Another friend is further down near the boat on the line, and he's sitting there looking around. He goes down a little bit and he looks over, and now he can see a fish. He's like, I'm trying to make out what kind of fish this is. He says it was dime shaped when he first located it. So a dime shaped fish, and as it's coming and swimming at him, he says, well, it's the shape of a wahoo, but it's not swimming like a wahoo. It's swimming more like a tuna. He says within seconds that shape got bigger and it had a bunch of teeth. And what he had was a mako shark that went from a dime shape way away from him. It leveled off with him 15 feet away, so it's even with him now in the water. Was a dime over there, now it's even with him in the water, just 15 feet away, 11-foot mako shark sitting there. So, of course, this is not going to go well for him. The current is so strong that Kurt is trying to take his spear gun and point it so that he can defend himself against the shark. He's got to fight the current just to get his spear gun up to the shark. He manages to get it pointed at the shark when the shark turns and comes and snaps at him. The shark gets the spear gun in its mouth, and now Kurt says that he's doing everything he can to push that spear gun into that shark's mouth. I believe they keep a tip on that spear, I'm not sure, but it sounds like that tip went off because I think that spear with the gun went into the shark's mouth. When he was pushing, he said he could feel soft, and he was like, I better hit something hard or this is not going to go well, because, you know, it's like probably getting a shot at the dentist. You don't feel that. It's such a small thing for your gums, and the shark is such a big thing. With that, probably the same thing, I would think. Doesn't really bother the shark. So eventually, he's pushing with all his might on the butt of the spear gun to push it deeper into the shark's mouth. Now he can feel the water rushing against his back. So now he knows that he's up against the shark solidly as he's being pushed through the water. He goes ahead, and seconds later the shark stops pushing him and swims down. He swims up, he can see the line, the buoy line. He swims up, grabs the buoy line, and yells to his buddies, there's a shark, get me out of this water. So now he's trying to make his way over to there, and his mask is all messed up through this. Probably the rushing of the water knocked his mask off or put water in the mask, but he can't see really well. So he has to get his mask adjusted to look down to see where the shark is. Ooh, big scary thing. Said he was waiting to feel a bite and a tug from another attack from the shark. Then he noticed, the next thing he noticed, he's on the dive step yelling at them to get him into the boat, which they do right then. They get him into the boat, and he is on his knees in the boat, kind of probably praying, thanking God for not being injured at all as far as by those shark teeth. So now they're on the boat, and now they're looking, they see his float. So you have your fish float, and it sounds like the shark has got the fish float kind of tangled on him, or it's attached to the gun. Either way, they grab onto the float, so they take probably a gaff and grab the line from the float, and when they do that, they pull on it, and then the shark tries to go to the bottom of the water. They said it felt like just a truck just dropping in the water, so they thought that was a bad idea, so they were going to just wait out the shark to come to the surface. They could see it swimming down there, they could see the float at the top of the water, and they could also see the gun sticking out of the shark's mouth. And suddenly his buddy decides a few minutes later, he goes ahead, he gaffs the float line again, and when he pulls on that, he turns to Kurt and says, you're the luckiest SOB on the planet. And up pops his spear gun. So the spear gun loosened itself up, he gets his spear gun back, he gets on the boat safely, no injury, 11-foot around 11-foot mako shark, a short fin mako shark. So that thing had to be coming at him at 30 miles an hour when it turned from a dime shape in 3 seconds to being sitting next to him. One of the creepier things, but them sharks can move, and that's one of the scarier things about them. That's our attack on Kurt Bickle, and now we'll get into the end of the show with You Don't Hear That Every Day. Okay, now we're going to head over and finish out the show with You Don't Hear That Every Day over at Max Eeks in the Inhambane Bay, which is Mozambique. The date, October 8th of 2015. Rafael Alberto. He is out doing some fishing. He gets his fishing done. He is heading himself to shore, and he is attacked by a shark. And all I know is he lost an arm in the attack. So he's carrying a basket of fish to shore, and shark grabs him and takes his arm away. I don't know what it did with the fish, if it took the fish or not. All I know is it took one of his arms, and 2 weeks later he was still in the hospital having treatment done to be able to survive this attack. It's hard to find any kind of an update after that. I wish there were more updates that I could find when I go ahead and Google and go through the newspapers, but there isn't a lot of updating going on with shark attacks. And it's crazy because they had a boat 2 days prior to this attack. A boat was attacked by a large shark. So a boat was hit by a shark, probably rammed a couple times. And then the day before the attack, there was a dolphin washed up on shore that was, wounded by a shark, killed by a shark. Its carcass ended up on shore nearby. So that's 2 incidents, and then you ended up with, Rafael Alberto being attacked. We'll put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. Not sure what type of shark, and that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll be back in a few days for another show full of attacks. But until then, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.